Recognition. The piercing howl of the containment breach alarm was the third one this week, and Dr. Eliza Rice was getting tired of it. She sprinted down the curved corridor of Research Station Hyperion, lab coat flapping behind her like wings. Status report. She barked into her comm unit as she rounded the corner toward Containment Block D. "It's the Noctis specimen again," came the harried voice of her assistant. "Somehow it's disrupted the electromagnetic field. Security personnel en route." But a crash followed by shouting cut off the rest of the sentence. Eliza doubled her pace, heart hammering against her ribs. The Noctis, a six-limbed apex predator from Proxima Centauri, had already killed 2 researchers during its capture. Its translucent exoskeleton housed musculature capable of tearing through reinforced alloys, and its sensory organs could detect the faintest electromagnetic signals, including those from human nervous systems. Eliza skidded to a halt at the security door, pressing her palm against the scanner. The door hissed open to reveal chaos. The Noctis had indeed escaped its containment field and was perched atop an overturned analysis terminal. 3 security officers had it cornered, plasma restraints powered up and ready. But instead of attacking, the creature was waiting. "Don't fire unless absolutely necessary," Eliza ordered, stepping carefully into the room. "These specimens are too valuable." The Noctis's sensory stalk swiveled toward her immediately, its primary eyes, all 8 of them arranged in an unsettlingly precise ring, fixed on her face with unnerving focus. "Dr. Rice, stay back," shouted Chief Security Officer Hammond, his restraint emitter humming with charged particles. "This thing's killed before." Eliza raised her hand in a calming gesture, never breaking eye contact with the creature. "Just wait. It's not attacking. Look at its posture." The security team hesitated, finally noticing what Eliza had seen immediately. The Noctis had drawn its limbs inward, lowering its armored head in what appeared to be a defensive posture rather than an aggressive one. "I don't understand," muttered one of the officers. "When we cornered it earlier, it nearly took Jessup's arm off." Eliza took a careful step forward. The Noctis flinched but didn't attack. Another step. Still no aggression. "Record everything," she said quietly. "This behavior is unprecedented." For 15 tense minutes, Eliza slowly approached the creature until she stood barely 2 meters away. The Noctis remained in its defensive posture, occasionally making a low thrumming sound that their xenobiologists had never documented before. When the specialized containment team finally arrived with a portable field generator, the Noctis allowed itself to be herded back into captivity without resistance, but only when Eliza was the one directing it. "I've never seen anything like it," said Dr. Kadam, the station's lead xenobiologist, reviewing the footage hours later in the conference room. "The Noctis are apex predators. They don't show submission, not even to larger predators in their own ecosystem. Yet it clearly recognized Dr. Rice as something to be cautious around," added Director Walsh, his weathered face puzzled. "What makes you different, Doctor?" Eliza shook her head. "Nothing. I approached carefully, maintained eye contact. Standard protocol. Standard protocol that has gotten 3 researchers killed in the past," Kadam pointed out. Something nagged at the back of Eliza's mind. Has anyone checked if the Noctis responds the same way to other humans? The question led to a week of controlled experiments. The results were baffling. The Noctis remained aggressive toward most of the station's personnel, but showed the same passive behavior toward a small subset of humans. No clear pattern emerged based on gender, age, or physical characteristics. Then Eliza noticed something peculiar in the observation logs. "Have you seen this?" she asked Dr. Kadam, pointing to entries from other containment blocks. "The Soran razorback and the Epsilon mantis are showing similar behavioral anomalies." Kadam frowned. "Those are completely different species from entirely different star systems. They share no evolutionary history. Yet all 3 are apex predators on their homeworlds, and all 3 are showing unexplained restraint around certain humans," Eliza said, excitement building in her voice. I want to run comparative tests. Director Walsh authorized the expanded research, though not without reservations. Within days, a pattern emerged that defied conventional xenobiological understanding. Across 7 different species of predatory aliens, all collected from different planets, the same behavioral response appeared: submission or at least non-aggression toward approximately 30% of the human personnel. The breakthrough came when Dr. Rice was reviewing neural scans of the human researchers who triggered the passive response. It's subtle, but it's there, she told the assembled research team, highlighting sections of the brain scans. Every human who elicits the passive response shows unusually high activity in these regions of the prefrontal cortex during the encounters. So their brains are different? Asked Hammond, who had reluctantly joined the research effort after witnessing the phenomenon firsthand. Not different, Eliza corrected. More engaged. When these humans make eye contact with the predator species, they're not just looking. They're seeing, assessing. Their fight or flight responses show a unique pattern. Not fear, not aggression, but a kind of readiness. Dr. Kadam leaned forward, his brow furrowed. Are you suggesting some kind of interspecies recognition? That's impossible. These predators evolved on worlds light years apart. Not recognition of a specific species, Eliza clarified, her eyes bright with discovery. Recognition of a specific type. We've been classifying humans as clever omnivores, tool users who evolved past our predatory instincts. But what if that's not how these creatures see us? The implication hung in the air until Director Walsh broke the silence. You're saying these apex predators recognize humans as fellow predators? Eliza nodded slowly. Not just predators. Apex predators. And they're responding accordingly. A nervous murmur rippled through the room. The idea that humanity, with its art, philosophy, and scientific achievements, might still be recognized as dangerous predators by creatures that had evolved across the galaxy was unsettling. Before they could delve further into the implications, an urgent communication interrupted the meeting. Director Walsh, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command, announced the station's eye. The Serax delegation has arrived in system and is requesting immediate discourse with human representatives. The mood in the room shifted instantly. The Serax were the newest spacefaring species encountered by humanity, a highly territorial race of reptilian hunters who had greeted initial diplomatic overtures with suspicious hostility. They're early, Walsh muttered, rising from his seat. The negotiating team isn't due for another 2 weeks. Sir, said the communications officer, her voice tight with concern, they're insisting this isn't a negotiation. They're calling it a territorial clarification and demand human acknowledgement of their claim to the Artemis sector. Walsh's face hardened. That sector contains 3 Earth colony worlds. There's nothing to clarify. It's human territory. They've brought a battle fleet to support their position. Sir, the silence that followed was deafening. Humanity had encountered many species since achieving faster-than-light travel, but none had directly threatened human settlements before. Dr. Rice, Walsh said finally, your research may have just become the most important project on this station. If the Serax are the predatory hunters our reports suggest, perhaps understanding how other predators perceive humans might give us insight into their psychology. Eliza nodded, her discovery suddenly feeling far heavier than it had moments before. I'll need access to all our data on Serax physiology and evolutionary history. You'll have it, Walsh assured her, already moving toward the door, along with anything else you need. Find me something I can use before these territorial clarifications turn into something worse. As the research team dispersed with renewed urgency, Eliza remained at the conference table, staring at the neural scans still displayed on the screens. The Noctis had looked into her eyes and seen something that made it pause, something primal and recognizable across the vast evolutionary distances of space. The question now was whether humans could make the Serax see the same thing before it was too late. Confrontation. The holographic display in the station's command center showed the Seracs delegation in uncomfortable detail. Standing nearly 2.5 meters tall, they combined reptilian and avian features in ways that Earth evolution had never attempted. Scaled bodies supported powerful, sinewy limbs that ended in four-digited hands with retractable talons. Their elongated skulls housed forward-facing eyes with vertical pupils and nictitating membranes that flicked occasionally across their golden irises. The Artemis sector falls within Serac's territorial boundaries according to the stellar cartography of our ancestors, declared the lead delegate, Sub-Commander Vexnar. His voice translator couldn't fully capture the clicking undertones of his natural speech. Human colonies, there are encroachments that must be withdrawn. Director Walsh maintained a neutral expression, though Eliza could see the tension in his shoulders as he responded. The human presence in the Artemis sector predates first contact with the Seracs by nearly 15 years. We have established settlements, terraforming operations, and irrelevant, interrupted Vexnar, his head crests flaring slightly. Serac's claim is by right of historical domain. We will permit humans 3 standard cycles to evacuate before enforcement measures begin. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the command center in stunned silence. 3 days, muttered Hammond. They're giving us 3 days before they attack our colonies. Walsh turned to Eliza, who had been observing from the side of the room. Please tell me you have something. She hesitated. Maybe, but it's unconventional. Within the hour, Eliza was presenting her findings to the station's senior staff and the emergency response team assembled by Earth Command. The Seracs evolved as pack hunters on a high-gravity world with extreme temperature variations, she explained, displaying evolutionary models on the main screen. Their ancestors were ambush predators who eventually developed coordinated group hunting tactics. This allowed them to take down prey many times their individual size. Fascinating xenobiology lesson, said General Rivera from Earth Command, her patience visibly thin. But how does this help us prevent a war? Because, Eliza continued, their evolutionary history has created specific instincts regarding territorial challenges. The Seracs don't just fight for territory. They assess the threat level of potential competitors before deciding whether to fight, intimidate, or withdraw. She switched the display to show comparative brain scans. When we finally got access to Serac's neurological data, I found this. The display highlighted regions in the Serac's brain alongside human brain scans. The recognition patterns are nearly identical, she explained. Seracs and humans both processed visual information from potential threats through remarkably similar neural pathways. It's an extraordinary case of convergent evolution. Dr. Kadam leaned forward. You're saying they see us the same way we see them. I'm saying they should, but they don't. Yet. Eliza pulled up footage from the earlier diplomatic encounters. Look at the human representatives in these meetings. Deferential postures, minimal direct eye contact, conciliatory language. We've been unconsciously presenting ourselves as non-threatening. That's standard diplomatic protocol, objected someone from Earth Command. For humans dealing with humans, Eliza countered. But the Seracs evolved to recognize dominance and threat through direct eye contact, body posture, and what they call presence. They're reading our diplomatic niceties as submission signals. General Rivera's expression shifted from impatience to interest. Are you suggesting we should? What? Stare them down? Not exactly, Eliza said. But I believe we need representatives who naturally trigger the predator recognition response. Humans who these apex predators instinctively recognize as equals or threats. The room erupted in overlapping objections and questions until Director Walsh raised his hand for silence. Dr. Rice has identified 37 individuals on this station who consistently trigger this recognition response in our predator specimens, he said. I've seen the evidence myself. It's compelling. You want to send these people as negotiators? Asked Rivera incredulously. Not negotiators, Eliza corrected. Witnesses. The Seracs need to see humans as we truly are, not just clever toolmakers, but apex predators in our own right. Creatures who hunted megafauna to extinction on our home world. Persistence predators whose ancestors chased prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. A heavy silence fell over the room. "There's more," Eliza continued, somewhat hesitantly. "I've been running simulations based on Seracs' psychological profiles. I believe there's a way to demonstrate our predatory nature that they'll understand viscerally." What followed was the most unorthodox diplomatic preparation in human history. For 2 days, the chosen representatives, including Dr. Rice herself, worked with xenobiologists and anthropologists to understand the subtle cues that might influence Seracs' perception. Meanwhile, an even more controversial element of Eliza's plan was put into motion. The Seracs delegation arrived on Research Station Hyperion with an escort of warriors, their ornate armor accentuating their already imposing physiques. Sub-Commander Vexnar's head crest extended fully as he surveyed the Human Reception Committee. "We come to receive your surrender of the Artemis sector," he declared without preamble. Director Walsh stepped forward, his posture straight but not aggressive. "Before we discuss the Artemis sector, we would like to show you something about humans that your people may not understand." Vexnar's translator couldn't convey his tone, but the slight tilt of his head suggested curiosity. "Proceed." The human delegation led the Seracs through the research station to a specially prepared observation gallery. One wall was transparent, looking into what appeared to be a simulated Earth savanna environment. "Humans evolved on a world teeming with predators," Eliza explained, taking the lead as planned. She maintained direct eye contact with Vexnar, noting how his posture stiffened slightly in response. "Many were larger and stronger than us. Yet we became the apex species." Inside the habitat, a door opened and a genetically recreated Earth lion emerged, a male with a full mane, weighing over 250 kilograms of muscle and claw and fang. The Seracs warriors shifted slightly, talons clicking against their armor as they assessed this new predator. A second door opened on the opposite side of the habitat. Through it walked a single unarmed human, Hammond, who had volunteered despite Eliza's concerns about his safety. He carried nothing but wore the lightweight sensor suit they had developed for the demonstration. The lion noticed him immediately, turning its massive head and focusing with predatory intensity. "Your kind sends its warriors to die for demonstration?" asked Vexnar, his translator struggling to convey what might have been confusion or disdain. "No," replied Eliza. "We're showing you why we became dominant on our world." On cue, the main display activated, showing real-time neural readings from both Hammond and the lion. As the two locked eyes across the habitat, the readings showed remarkable patterns. "Watch," Eliza said softly. The lion, initially poised as if to charge, suddenly went still. Its ears flattened slightly, and though it maintained its gaze, its posture shifted subtly. "The lion recognizes something in the human," Eliza explained. "Not fear, recognition. This is an apex predator acknowledging another apex predator." "A single example proves nothing," Vexnar objected, though Eliza noted how intently he was watching the interaction. At her signal, the habitat doors opened again. This time, the Noctis emerged from one, while the Epsilon mantis was released from another. Both creatures initially postured aggressively, until they noticed Hammond standing his ground, his gaze shifting between them with the same focused intensity. The neural readings continued to display on the main screen, showing the complex interplay of threat assessment and recognition. "These are apex predators from 3 different worlds," Eliza said. "None share evolutionary history, yet all recognize the same thing in human eyes: the gaze of a predator who has never known fear of another species." The Seracs delegation had gone unusually still, their own predatory instincts engaged as they watched the demonstration. Vexnar's head crest fluttered in what the synopsychologists had identified as thoughtful consideration. "Humans have no natural weapons," he said finally. "No claws, no significant teeth, no venom." "We had something more dangerous," Eliza replied. endurance, and intelligence. We were persistence hunters. We didn't need to outfight our prey. We simply followed them until they couldn't run anymore. For millions of years, that was our evolutionary strategy. We became the thing that never stops coming. As she spoke, Hammond demonstrated by slowly, steadily advancing toward the lion. The massive predator held its ground briefly before finally breaking eye contact and moving away, maintaining distance. Something shifted in Vexnar's posture, a straightening, a new alertness. The other Syrax warriors responded to their leader's cue, reassessing the humans before them. The same determination that made us persistence hunters drove us to the stars. Director Walsh added, stepping forward. The same relentlessness that exhausted prey animals now fuels our exploration and our defense of what we consider ours. For a long moment, Vexnar stared at the human delegation, his vertical pupils contracting slightly. Then, deliberately, he lowered his head crest, not in submission, but in recognition. The Syrax misunderstood the nature of humans, he said finally. We saw your diplomatic behavior as the caution of prey, not the confidence of predators. We prefer cooperation to conflict, Walsh replied. But that preference should not be mistaken for inability to defend what is ours. The tension in the observation gallery slowly dissipated as both species recognized something fundamental about the other. The territorial dispute over the Artemis sector wasn't resolved that day, but the threat of immediate military action was withdrawn. As the formal discussions continued elsewhere on the station, Eliza remained in the observation gallery, watching Hammond calmly exit the habitat while the collection of apex predators maintained their respectful distance. Remarkable, isn't it? Said Dr. Kadam, joining her at the viewport. All this time, we've presented ourselves to the galaxy as peaceful explorers and diplomats. We are those things, Eliza said. But we're also the species that looked into the eyes of every predator on our world and taught them to look away first. Kadam nodded thoughtfully. Do you think the Syrax will honor the new understanding? Eliza smiled slightly. I think they'll respect it. When one apex predator recognizes another, there's a certain clarity that follows. In the habitat beyond the glass, the lion had settled on a rocky outcropping, its watchful gaze still tracking the door through which Hammond had departed. Recognition didn't mean friendship, but it did mean respect, and sometimes that was enough to build a future on. The human eyes that had stared down threats across Earth's history now looked out at the stars, carrying the same unwavering determination, and throughout the galaxy, other predators were beginning to recognize what that meant.